Jay Sanford here, Washington Financial Group, Director of Investment Strategy. Thought I would come to you from our Washington, D.C. branch. We are working remotely, and I do have a colleague here to help me, socially distanced, of course.
6 feet away.
6 feet away. It is Elena Pearson, who is the host of other podcasts at Washington Financial Group, so I thought she could help me with this. She is going to ask a few questions that some of our clients might be wondering or asking themselves. Thought it would be good to get some answers in front of people, give our perspective on things, and just let you know that we are remote, we are working hard, and it is business as usual, or as much as possible, at Washington Financial Group. So Elena, thank you for helping here.
My pleasure.
I know you've got some questions for me, so why don't we start right away?
Sure, absolutely. So Jay, as you know, while we're working remotely, it seems busier than ever. During times like these, it's really important for us to be proactive as well as very responsive to our clients and their concerns. And so one of the things that I'm always asked and I'm always wondering is, we're all feeling this market volatility, but besides the day-to-day market fluctuations that we're seeing, and we see it up and down, every other day, what do you see in the near future that gives you pause, that may be concerning as we project forward, and what gives you hope? What gives you the optimism to continue to have, positive dialogue?
Sure. Good question. I think actually Friday was a very interesting day in the market, and it gave me both pause and maybe a glimpse of hope as well. On Friday, we saw the markets start out positive. It would have been the first time in over 6 weeks that we had 2 positive days in a row on the S&P 500. But it did kind of peter out there at the end. And what we saw were bonds were actually losing some value, which was based on liquidity concerns, not based on anything but that. And so I think that that's a little bit alarming. And you saw the Fed today, and I should note that we are taping this Monday, and so things could obviously change before you hear this.
The 23rd.
Monday the 23rd. So the bond market was a little bit concerning on Friday, but the thing that I found really interesting was the international markets. We actually saw our emerging markets fund go up on Friday. And so that was a sign that emerging markets, and really what you're talking about when you say emerging markets with a lot of these funds, is Asia and specifically China. The Asian markets and China specifically were positive on Friday. So we saw some glimpses of hope with that, with a positive emerging markets fund. We did see treasuries go up, but that simply was a flight to quality. Most everything else was down a bit. So we're taking it day by day when it comes to the volatility. We know that there are going to be some tough times ahead. I think the unemployment number is going to be astronomical. That will be out on Thursday, and we're hoping that the Senate has a package passed before then, should have it today, and hopefully that'll combat that very scary number that'll come out on Thursday.
Well, one of the good things about that number in terms of unemployment is while that has been very rapid, we've seen an increase in that. Hopefully we'll see a parallel rapid decrease as in the future as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, and it's kind of tough to quantify that sentiment, right? Because a lot of people have been laid off very quickly. The restaurant industry obviously got hit really hard here in D.C., and I'm sure New York and other major metropolitan areas. And so that number is going to be very high, and you hope that once we get our hands wrapped around the virus itself and have the ability to go back to work, that number will reverse course immediately. And as violent as that number is going down, it'll be just as quick to go back up. And so you just don't know when that is, and that's kind of the waiting game that's difficult to process and to quantify when it comes to the markets.
Absolutely. So where do you get most of your information from? Obviously, we have our CNBC going today, as we do every day in the office. Where are some of the other interesting sources of information where you're getting information not just about the markets, but from policy, the spread of the virus, what we're doing in order to contain it and find potential solutions? Where do you garner your best information?
So my day mostly is made up of talking to clients and talking to economists and mutual fund managers. So my information is based in the financial sector. I must say that the financial sector, the funds that we deal with, the ETFs that we deal with, those managers have made themselves available to me and to our colleagues in order to get the information on the portfolios immediately. So most of the day is reading those and talking to those people, reading those emails. There are some fantastic economists at JP Morgan that we talk to on a daily basis. Goldman Sachs has wonderful information as well. So throughout the day, it's client calls and talking to those people in order to get an idea of what they're seeing and how those portfolios are positioned.
Nice. What are you reading in addition to that? So market closes after hours, it's 4 or 5 p.m. What are you doing to de-stress? Because you spend, most of your day on client calls, chatting with portfolio managers. What takes your mind off of things? What are you reading?
I've actually had a hard time dealing with that aspect of it. Telecommuting can be difficult for some people. I find it a little bit difficult because it's very hard to unplug if I'm basically in the same place all the time. I have been playing an odd amount of Bubble Crush at the end of the day. That seems to de-stress me quite well. I also have been watching a lot of Netflix at night. The Outsider on HBO, excellent. Hunters on Amazon Prime. And I'm hoping that some place like Disney or Hulu or Netflix starts putting out these big blockbuster movies. You might see those come out on one of those, and that could be a investment play down the road if you see these companies deciding that the theaters aren't going to be open for a while and we're going to put these blockbusters out. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. I do continue to read emails and talk to mutual fund and portfolio managers after hours, simply because some of them are overseas and they have different time zones and that sort of thing. So that happens as well. But I do my best to de-stress.
It sounds like you're not doing the most amazing job.
I'm not.
I did give you that book of poetry by E.E. Cummings, which I'm waiting for you to read. I think you'll find that potentially soothing.
Yeah, it is not soothing because the punctuation in that book is crazy and it stresses me out. Thank you.
So Jay Sanford not doing a great job managing the stress, but that's okay. What other lessons can we learn during this period in time? We are definitely in a period of self-reflection and reevaluation. Both, the markets are doing it. It seems like we're all doing it as well as we're all socially distanced. What sort of lessons do you think that we can take away from this unique time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always try and take a step back and look at what's happening and how we can compare it to other time periods. For better or for worse, I've been in the industry since the mid-90s, so I have seen 2000, 2001, 9/11. I've seen currency devaluations. I've seen 2008 obviously was the most recent one, and now we've seen this. And so everything always feels a little bit different when it comes to that, but we always see kind of the markets churn the way they have. So in 2008, The financial markets were crazy, and we thought it was kind of the end of banking as we knew it, and suddenly 2009, it bottomed out. 2001, I think, actually feels a little bit like this in the sense that it's a little bit scary. We don't really know what's coming each day. I remember 9/11 was on a Tuesday, and you walked outside and everyone was kind of walking around like a zombie. And I kind of feel the same way with this too. You actually were able to be social in 2001, whereas this is, you have to be socially distanced, I realize. But I think the fear feels about the same. The lessons that you can learn from these types of times, I think there's some simple ones. Always have an emergency reserve. If you are young, have an emergency reserve so you feel comfortable or at least confident that you can take care of yourself over a 3 or 6 month time period if you were, in fact, to lose your job. The same can be for retirees, and we implement this quite well at WFG, where we make sure that you have a lot of cash on hand. And that allows you to deal with your cash flow without touching your investments. Right now, touching your investments is probably the worst thing you can do because you're basically locking in your losses and losing the ability to ride the market back up. I do feel like, and of course, I have no crystal ball and I'm no doctor when it comes to this, but I do feel like when we get a handle on this, we are going to have the ability to skyrocket back out of this, simply because we have done everything possible when it comes to having the economy ready to spring into action once the virus has taken place. So my biggest thing is have the cash, have that rainy day fund. And if you watch Pretty Woman ever, one of the things that Richard Gere says is, that rainy day fund, did you ever have it? And then he spouts off something like, well, it's raining really hard now. So I think that's where I go with that. Have cash, know what market you're in. Quite frankly, if you are in the growth phase of your portfolio, you should be thinking about buying. As painful as that sounds, if you had cash dripping back into the market might be your best way of doing it. So I think we'll always be learning when these sorts of things happen, and we'll probably put out more podcasts and information on things that we have learned throughout this. Wonderful.
Thanks so much for sitting down here and chatting with me, and get back out there and buy stuff.
It's time to go back to work. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate it. Just know that we are here. Please give us a call if you have questions, concerns, if you're fearful, if you're excited about buying. We are definitely here, and communication is paramount when it comes to these sorts of times. So thanks for listening. We will be back again, I promise, and look forward to talking to you. Take care.
That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks for listening. If you have a question that you'd like us to address in a future episode, shoot us an email at info@washfinancial.com. If you enjoy our show, we'd love for you to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you access your podcasts. The opinions voiced in this program are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, and SIPC. Investment advice offered through Global Retirement Partners, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Global Retirement Partners, Washington Financial Group, a division of Hub International Mid-Atlantic, and Hub International are not affiliated with LPL Financial.